we get ready for Eagles-Lions. ESPN.com, NFL Nation. Lions reporter Michael Rothstein with us here. Our outside view. Look at the Detroit Lions, a team struggling along here. Lost to the Bears last week. A lot of injuries as some breaking news from the Lions. Michael Rothstein can give us some updates on some of the Lions who may be in and out, and some of the more important Lions, it looks like. A team that's already struggling, Michael, now has some injury issues against an Eagles team that 4 weeks into the season has virtually no injuries.
Yeah, that's pretty good for the Eagles. I mean, listen, these injuries are not – none of them on the injury report, none of these guys that are out or doubtful are surprising. Ziggy Ansah hasn't played since week 2. DeAndre Levy hasn't played since the opening week of the year. Eric Ebron has been gutting it out for really the past week and a half, 2 weeks now. And he even said after the game against the Bears on Sunday that he came back in just to try to be an emotional guy more than anything else, to show them that, to show his teammates, like, listen, if he's out there, maybe that could will them to win the game. When he says something like that, Ebron's a pretty passionate guy. You kind of get the feeling he's really beat up, and he's already had back, knee, and ankle injuries this year, so he's not surprising that he's out. Dwayne Washington hurt his ankle against the Bears. He hasn't practiced all week. The Lions are down to 2 running backs. Obviously, Amir Abdullah is on injured reserve. So they could call up this guy, Mike James, from Miami of Florida, who was signed to the practice squad this week, to give them a third running back, but that obviously hasn't happened yet. But, yeah, they're a beat-up group. Their linebacker core is still a mess, as a lot of the guys they thought they would have on the roster back in training camp are on IR, have been released due to injury, or are just injured, as in DeAndre Levy's case. So they're a beat-up group, and, yeah, they're struggling all over the place.
Michael, these two teams played on Thanksgiving last year, and it was an embarrassing loss for Philadelphia. I mean, 45-14, domination, and pretty much pushed Chip Kelly right out the door. What has happened to the Lions since that day, where you look at a team right now that's fallen apart at 1-3?
I don't know if anything's happened to them. It's a completely different Philadelphia team, as you guys know, from the coaching staff to the quarterback to a lot of the defense. So that part, I mean, that's a completely different scenario also at the start of the season versus the team reeling. As far as the Lions go, it's tough to really pinpoint exactly where things went wrong, other than, listen, they played a fairly easy second half of the season last year. They were playing basically for pride for a lot of it, because you got to remember they started off 1-7, were essentially out of the playoff race. We're really just playing to try to keep Jim Caldwell's job and some respectability. And this year they've had a tough go of it. Injuries have definitely hurt them. Not having Ezekiel Ansah has decimated their pass rush. Not having DeAndre Levy has taken away their best cover linebacker. Granted, they didn't have him last year. They lost their best running back in Amir Abdullah. And they're a team that just is trying to find themselves. And they've played three of their first 4 games on the road. So this isn't unexpected. At the beginning of the year, even before the season, I said, this start could be a 1-3, maybe 2-2 start after the Bears started to get really hit hard with injuries. And that was really before Detroit had their own injury issues. So this isn't entirely unexpected. That said, the Eagles are playing a lot better than I think anybody thought they would. The Rams, who the Lions play next week, are playing a lot better than anybody thought they would. So all of a sudden, this schedule, they have 3 straight home games now, is very daunting for Detroit. And that should be very concerning for the Lions if they're trying to crawl back into any sort of playoff picture, divisional race, or really trying to salvage their season, because this is a must-win game for Detroit, or if it's not a must-win, it's about as close as you're going to get.
Michael Rothstein's with us. ESPN.com NFL Nation covers the Lions. They'll host the Eagles this week. Which side of the ball is it more of a concern for Detroit this week? You got Jim Schwartz, and I'm sure he's been a big story this week. His defense, or Doug Peterson with Carson Wentz in that offense? What keeps Jim Caldwell up a little later at night?
I think everything's keeping Jim Caldwell up at night right now, other than the punting, because Sam Martin has been arguably the best punter in the NFL, if not definitely the best punter in the NFL. Everything else is keeping Jim Caldwell up, I would assume. Their offense is a mess, and by that I mean they've scored 1 first-half touchdown in the past 2 games. They've really struggled to move the ball. Golden Tate was benched last week. He's had early season struggles. He admitted this week that his problems right now are all mental, so he's hoping to get past that. because they need him in this offense, especially with Ebron out. And that's a big concern. The offensive line is actually, which was the major concern point entering the season for the Lions, really on either side of the ball, has actually held up okay, way better than I think a lot of people expected. But they're just not getting the production they had hoped to offensively the last 2 weeks, and arguably even the last 3 weeks, other than that second half in Green Bay when they were already down 31-3. Then there's the defense. And, I mean, their defense it's not getting any pass rush. It's only forced one turnover this year. Their secondary, other than Darius Slay and Glover Quinn, has not really gotten any sort of consistent performances. Tavon Wilson was out last week, and that really hurt them. He's their starting strong safety. He should be back this week. But their front seven just can't get much pressure. They can't blitz a ton because of the injuries they've had. They're finally starting to get a little bit more healthy there. But until they get DeAndre Levy back, they're not going to be fully healthy. And if they can't get the pass rush, then that really hurts everything else they try to do. Because Terrell Austin's defense is built on a line that can really attack up the field, stop the run, force teams into third and long situations, so then they can unleash guys like the now injured Ziggy Ansah and Devin Taylor, who hasn't been as good as people had hoped this year, and Kerry Hyder, who's second in the NFL in sacks. But listen, 2 months ago, Kerry Hyder, no one thought Kerry Hyder was going to be on the team. So you're looking at a group that's really, it's a bit of a mash unit right now, just based off of some injuries and based off of the fact that they haven't been able to get anything going. And that's been maybe the most confounding thing of this start for the Lions is their defensive line throughout the preseason, really with who they signed, looked like it was going to be a strength of this team, looked like it was going to be maybe the strength of this team other than Matthew Stafford. And it has been a big problem for them. And if they can't get to Carson Wentz on Sunday, it's going to be another long day, because if they can't get to the quarterback, Carson Wentz is going to pick their secondary part. They're going to have Wentz have an extra second or so to make a decision, and that's where everything in the back seven basically goes to heck. I'm pretty sure I can't say the other words that I want to say. So, and it all falls apart, and that's how you have a team that has one of the worst rush defenses in the NFL and a team that is allowing opponents to have the best QBR in the league against them, and that's where the Lions are right now. They're not a very good football team.
Michael, if there is something the Eagles fans should be concerned about, where is a spot that you think Detroit could have some success to maybe, I know a lot of people, Philadelphia is a favorite in this game, even though they're on the road. Where's an area where Detroit has had some success and can exploit on Sunday?
Well, there's two. I mean, I just talked about that defensive line, right? There's a lot of talent there. So if they're able to turn that around and actually pressure Carson Wentz and actually stop Philadelphia's run game, then they have a shot, because they have playmakers in the secondary in Glover Quinn and Darius Slay that can, if they get some help from pass rush, really disrupt games. That said, the area to be most concerned, if you're an Eagles fan, is Matthew Stafford, is Marvin Jones. They have a very good connection. Marvin Jones is second in the NFL in receiving. Matthew Stafford, save for parts of last week, has looked like a top 10 NFL quarterback. He's been magnificent. He's taken over a big leadership role with this team. And their passing offense is quite good. Of course, that plays right into the strength of the Eagles' best part of their team, which is their pass defense, as they haven't allowed a passing touchdown all year. So that's going to be really interesting. I think if Matthew Stafford can solve Jim Schwartz's defense a little bit, and listen, if there's any quarterback that knows how to beat Jim Schwartz's defense, it's probably Matthew Stafford, because he spent 5 years with Schwartz. If there's any coordinator that knows how to rattle Matthew Stafford, it's probably Jim Schwartz, again, because they spent their first 5 years together. So I think that chess match is going to be really, really interesting. And whoever maybe wins that battle there probably wins the game.
All right, Sunday, 1 o'clock right here, 97.3 ESPN. By the way, Michael Rothstein, ESPN.com, NFL Nation covers the Lions. If correct me if I'm wrong, on ESPN.com, you've got Eagles 31-14 over Detroit.
I do, as of now. I mean, I always reserve the right to change that, but I never do, because it's just a prediction, and let's be honest, how often are those actually right?
Absolutely. That's why they play them. Sunday, you'll hear it right here on 97.3 ESPN. The pregame starts at noon. Thank you, Michael.
Hey, anytime.